देखिए देश में कितनी बड़ी खबर सामने आई है और देश के राज्य कर्नाटका से कितनी बड़ी खबर कि 18 से 25 साल के 7,000 से ज्यादा कॉलेज छात्र HIV पॉजिटिव पाए गए हैं। 7,000, 1,500 या 1,500 नहीं बोल रही हूं, पूरे 7,000 बच्चे ऐसे हैं जो HIV पॉजिटिव पाए गए हैं। इस वजह से राज्य सरकार ने सभी डिग्री और इंजीनियरिंग कॉलेजों में HIV टेस्टिंग और काउंसलिंग कैंप अनिवार्य कर दिए गए हैं। कर्नाटका की बात है, कॉलेज के अंदर ये सब कुछ निर्णय सरकार को लेना पड़ा। क्यों लेना पड़ा? क्योंकि जब पता चला कि 7,000 HIV वाले ग्रस्त छात्र पाए गए हैं और उनसे न जाने और भी कितनों को हुआ होगा जो रिकॉर्ड भी सामने नहीं आ पाया, जो बच्चे भी नहीं समझ आए। आप सोचिए ये कितना भयानक हो सकता है। और HIV के बारे में आपको पता है, ये चीज़ बहुत समय के बाद पता चलता है, तब तक हो सकता है कि कोई और भी उससे ग्रसित हो जाए। अब यहाँ पर कर्नाटका की सरकार जो है वो टेंशन में आ गई है और अब मेन काम इसी पर किया जा रहा है कि कैसे उस HIV को रोका जाए और जिनको HIV हो गया है, जो ग्रस्त हो गए हैं, उनको कैसे बचाया जाए। अब HIV के बारे में पता होगा आपको, HIV का इलाज अभी तक हमारे देश के अंदर है नहीं। हाँ, उसको कम जरूर किया जा सकता है, तो HIV का इलाज किया जा सकता है। एक और चीज है कि यहाँ पर सरकार क्या ऐसे निर्णय ले जिससे कि कई लोग जो अभी तक सरकार को पता भी नहीं चले। इसमें बताया जा रहा है कि लगभग 50,000 से ज्यादा लोग ऐसे हैं जो HIV से ग्रस्त हैं, लेकिन अभी तक सरकार को पता नहीं है कि वो कौन है, उनकी कोई डिटेल्स नहीं है, लेकिन ये पता है कि वो ग्रस्त हैं। तो ये कितना मुश्किल में पटक सकता है पूरे कर्नाटका को, आप समझ सकते हैं। क्या इस पर कहेंगे? कमेंट जरूर कीजिएगा। नमस्कार।
अपना पॉडकास्ट शुरू करना चाहते हैं और चाहते हैं कि पहले दिन से उसे लाखों लोग देखें, तो अब ये पॉसिबल है जयपुर में। जयपुर का सबसे तेजी से बढ़ता हुआ डिजिटल न्यूज चैनल द फैक्ट इंडिया आपके पॉडकास्ट को वर्ल्ड क्लास बनाने के लिए जयपुर के बीचों बीच श्यामनगर में लाया है वर्ल्ड क्लास पॉडकास्ट सेटअप, ग्रीन स्क्रीन सेटअप। उसे शूट करने के लिए बेस्ट स्टेट ऑफ द आर्ट फैसिलिटीज, एडिटर से लेके लाखों फॉलोअर्स और करोड़ों वाली रील्स वाला यूट्यूब चैनल, और ये सब आपको एक ही जगह पर मिलने वाला है। तो पूरी जानकारी के लिए आज ही व्हाट्सएप कीजिए इस नंबर पर।
Working under the premise that HIV was the probable cause of AIDS. But when he went looking for the proof, he found there was none. They just made it up.
What is that paper? Who do I go to for that? And I looked around, I asked a couple of virologists at that company, and they said, no, you don't have to reference. I said, I have to reference that because I don't know where that came from. How do I know that? And it turned out that nobody knew it. And I was getting really freaked about that. That's when I first started saying, they don't know. Nobody really knows. This whole thing is a big sham.
Mullis pointed out how the CDC was losing money and how the HIV-AIDS connection brought their profits back in the black, and how the men at the highest levels were all in on it. Kerry Mullis knew these men were dangerous.
They don't want people like me walking up and asking them those kind of questions, and they're willing to go to great lengths. The first time I really questioned it, I was working on a project where we were measuring HIV in people's blood at this place called Specialty Laboratories in Santa Monica. I was just a consultant there. I came in about 3 days a month, and we were working on that. And at some point, we needed to re-up our grant from the NIH to work on that, and I had to write it. And so the first line of that was HIV is the probable cause of AIDS. And I wrote that, and then I said, well, I need a paper, some kind of scientific paper, to reference that statement. Because when you make a statement like that, that's like a fact. So you need to say, here's how come I know that. Right? You put a little one if it's the first statement you've made, and then you put down at the bottom of the paper, you have a one. You say, here's a paper by somebody that describes why that statement's true, right? And so I said, well, what's that? I don't know. Let me think about what is that paper? Who do I go to for that? And I looked around. I asked a couple of virologists at that company, and they said, no, you don't have to always this. You go to experts and ask them. And so I asked all these people one after the other, and none of them had it. None of them. And I was getting really freaked about that. That's when I first started saying, they don't know. Nobody really knows. This whole thing is a big sham. It's ridiculous.
Inventing the AIDS virus inventing the AIDS virus. Written by Peter Duesberg, P-E-T-E-R, Duesberg, D-U-E-S-B-E-R-G. He's professor of virology in the Berkeley University. And this book has a foreword by a Nobel laureate who was the father of PCR test. What's his name? PCR test. Huh? What's the name? Carrie Mullis. And Carrie writes, Peter and I don't know what causes AIDS, but there's no cause for AIDS. But Peter and I know one thing for certain, which nobody can dispute because he is the best virologist in the world, having got the Genius of the Century award. And I am the father of the PCR test which identifies viruses. Nobody can dispute. And Peter and I do not think HIV virus has anything to do with AIDS. Full stop. Unquote.
Anthony Fauci helped arrange for the drug companies to get access to children in foster homes in 7 states.
There was a children's center in New York, in the Bronx, called Incarnation Center, where foster children or children who were considered to have AIDS through PCR tests that were inaccurate were put in this medical center, and they were used for experimental drugs.
Some of the children were infants. Some of the children were not even HIV positive. Fauci, together with pharmaceutical companies, sponsored these experiments. I use the terminology that's used in the Nuremberg Code. These are experiments, they're not studies. These are invasive experiments.
Some of the trials, some of the protocols say that the children are, and I quote, presumed to be HIV positive. Now, what kind of society are we that children who are only presumed, and by whom are they presumed? What criteria makes them presumed to be HIV, that those children then get exposed to as many as 7 highly toxic experimental drugs?
And what I uncovered was that the promise that Dr. Fauci and his team made to these foster children agencies is for every child that you allow to enroll in this, we're going to give them an advocate, a patient advocate, to watch their well-being like their parents, because they're disconnected from their parents when you're a foster child. This patient advocate will watch the data, they'll be briefed, and they'll protect that child's personal and safety interests as they go through this very toxic drug trial. And it turns out that in almost all those cases, the NIAID, Fauci's division, didn't provide that advocate after the fact. And the ultimate investigation concluded that these were unexplained, mysterious deaths that were very troubling because of the fact that NIAID had not given them the protections of an advocate, somebody to watch out and be that child's parent as these drugs were being administered to. So very much like the Tuskegee syphilis experiment in the 40s.
In 92, the NIH decided that this population was going to be as good as any to test drugs on.
Aren't there rules against testing on children?
Yes, there are.
Under federal rules, consent for children to take part in drug trials has to be given by their parent or guardian. But the kids at Incarnation have no independent voice. The body that is their legal guardian, the ACS, is the same body that makes the children available for trials.
National Institute of Health rules against using words of the state in clinical trials. But
how do they get around this?
Well, you get around it by appealing to public sympathy. If you go with the definition of AIDS that we have, which is a single cause, illness with no cure, blah blah blah, caused by one thing, instead of what it appears to be, the multifactorial, complex, treatable illness that occurs around the world because of poverty, drug toxicity, and other things. If you go with the first view, you can do anything you want.
So basically they're saying these babies have a death sentence anyway, it doesn't matter what we do, we can just do anything we need to do.
We're saving their lives.
Well, it is shocking that in New York City, experimental drug treatments are being used on children who are in foster care.
Even senior politicians in the city have found it impossible to get information about the trials. Bill Perkins is Deputy Majority Leader on New York City Council.
We do know that several have passed away during the course of these experiments, and we know that there are still some involved. And there's been somewhat of a secrecy about the whole matter, I must say. It has not been easy to get through the bureaucracy as to exactly what this is all about.
We're using toxic drugs on infants. We're using toxic drugs on children. Toxic drugs that cause genetic mutation, organ failure, bone marrow death, bodily deformations, brain damage, and fatal skin disorders. We're using that on orphans.
For months we tried to get answers from those behind the trials. From Columbia Presbyterian Hospital, where many of the tests were devised. From Incarnation Children's Center, from the Catholic Church, and from the ACS, the authority ultimately responsible.
If the children wouldn't take the drugs by mouth, then they would put in a gastric tube.
Some of the older children refused to take the drugs that were given to them because they were so horrible. So they surgically inserted a feeding tube in their tummies so that they couldn't resist.
And many of these children died, a potter's grave of 80 children. And these were all children of color.
My assignment was to go there, so I did. I went to Hawthorne, New York, and I located this grave site. And what it looks like if you're standing before it, it was a semicircle of large tombstones with names engraved on the tombstones. I remember there were stuffed animals and flowers and hearts and things adorning those tombstones. And I also remember there were flies buzzing around. There was a mound, a gigantic hole in the ground covered by astroturf. And it wasn't nailed down, it was just covered. And I went over and I took a corner of the astroturf, and I remember, my heart was pounding. I lifted it up, and inside was just a lot of coffins. They were in there haphazardly. And apparently there was more than one child in each coffin.
The drug companies which have supported trials at Incarnation include some of the world's largest. They also refuse to be interviewed for this program. Officials at the National Institutes for Health insist that any participation of children in drug trials should be voluntary in every sense.
These little children are regarded as throwaway children. Nothing really was done to punish those who broke the law.
Believe that HIV causes AIDS? You don't believe that? I mean, it's just a word, but it's a very, very important distinction. I think that that's why it's become a very emotional kind of thing. Because people actually, they get personally committed to what really is a body of evidence that can be analyzed, by lots of people. And at this point, there's so much of it out there, nobody can really analyze it, all of it. But nobody can write a review of it that says HIV causes AIDS because of this. If a postdoc were to write a review of their literature that showed without much doubt that HIV was the cause of AIDS, that guy would be famous. Now there's 100,000 guys out there who have the opportunity. 10 years ago, we've been waiting for this star postdoctoral fellow to distinguish himself forever and get a lifelong grant from Johnson. He hasn't shown up. No one has bothered to write a definitive review. Any journal would take it. That right there proves that HIV does not cause AIDS. By induction.
Then what have we seen in the photograph? Have we photographed AIDS? Do we have AIDS in a test tube? Because if we haven't proven HIV causes AIDS, then can we show that what we're calling HIV is an actual organism?
Nobody has actually purified HIV. There's no little bottle of HIV anywhere on the planet that's just got HIV in it. They have cell lines that they think that it's growing in. There are a lot of people who think it's not even there at all. But I mean, I wouldn't doubt that it's there. I think anything you can imagine is there somewhere. You know? But whether it's there or not is not the question. The question is, does it do anything with regard to these set of diseases that we now call AIDS? And it's such a bit of it's a tangled web of madness. By calling all those things AIDS, by just making it more and more and more complicated to figure out what causes what. It's like, that's not the way science works. It's a real bizarre thing.
Since we're a little short on time here, I'm just going to kind of give it to you in some telegrams. If you took this room and you said that there was some disease in this room, and you found a few people that exist in this room who have what some doctors might call autoimmune problem, and then you found a few other people in this room who had what some doctors might call chronic fatigue, and then you found some other people who were just sick without explanation in this room, and no doctor could really make a good diagnosis, and you said, let's start from here, and let's create a new disease. Now, granted, most of the people in the room are healthy, but there are a few sick people, and so what we want to do is we want to tie all this together so that we can say that all the people that are sick in the room are sick for the same reason, even though that is not true. So we'll find a germ, and we'll say that everybody that has an immune problem, or has got a chemical sensitivity problem, or has got fatigue problem, or whatever, is suffering from a germ, and we'll call it Omabamba from deepest, darkest Africa. It somehow got loose in Orange County because an airline pilot for American Airlines was on vacation in Zaire, and when he came back to Orange County, he carried this into the Red Lion Hotel. So we'll call this the Red Lion plague that infects a certain small percentage of the people in this room. And then what we'll try to do is devise a test which will indicate whether the people in this room who don't seem to be ill might later become ill. And we'll call this the Red Lion antibody test. And if people show certain kinds of antibodies, we'll say, you're going to die later on. And eventually we'll terrorize about 70 to 80% of the people in the room, so that when they wake up in the morning, if they have a pimple, or they don't feel good, or they had too much coffee, or they smoked a cigarette, or they drove in heavy traffic where they didn't get enough sleep, they're going to think that they have the Red Lion plague. Because they're all terrorized, because they all know that they were here in the same night, in the same room, and that's where this thing all began. On August, whatever it is, 15th. And now we'll devise a drug, which if anybody tests positive for Red Lion plague, we can give them, assuring them that it will knock out the germ. But in reality, just between you and me, it will make them waste away, it will make them have muscle atrophy, pernicious anemias, it'll stop DNA replication in the body, it'll destroy the bone marrow where immune system cells are manufactured, and they'll all die. And as they die, gradually, that will terrorize other people in the room, because they will think that they're dying of a disease and that they're next.
You couldn't get a stronger study than this. Every single resident in South Korea was in this study. Every single one. And so what do they do in this study? Well, they, again, compared who got the vaccine, they compared it to who didn't, and they stratified by dose number. But the shocking thing about this study is, before we dig into it, is this is the strongest signal that we have to date that vaccine-acquired immunodeficiency syndrome is real, or what's called VAIDS. So what happened in this study was, as each dose was incurred among these South Koreans, so they get 1 dose, 2 dose, 3 dose, 4+ doses, each time they got another
Et nous revenons avec l'actualité du Covid-19 et nous sommes avec le professeur Luc Montagnier. Bonjour. Bonjour. Et merci d'être avec nous. Faut-il le rappeler, vous êtes prix Nobel de médecine et c'est vous qui êtes à l'origine de la découverte du VIH.
C'est une longue histoire, mais intéressante aussi pour l'actualité, parce qu'on a une expérience de choses qui se sont passées, qui ont été très difficiles à contrôler là-bas à ce moment-là, et ce qui a permis de trouver la vérité, c'est comme aujourd'hui.
Alors ce qui m'intéresse ce matin, c'est que vous travaillez en ce moment sur le virus.
Je travaille, mais pas forcément au labo, puisque on travaille sur ordinateur avec un collègue, et puis c'est tout. On n'a pas d'expérience, on peut dire, mais l'expérience vient de la maladie elle-même, de toutes les mesures qui sont faites actuellement dans les laboratoires sur les patients.
Et vous êtes arrivé à certaines conclusions.
Alors, nous sommes arrivés à la conclusion qu'effectivement, il y avait eu une manipulation au sujet de ce virus.
C'est-à-dire?
Eh bien, qu'une partie, je ne dis pas le total, n'est-ce pas, mais il y a un modèle qui est évidemment le virus classique, et là c'était un modèle surtout venant de la chauve-souris, mais à ce modèle on a par-dessus ajouté des séquences notamment du VIH, le virus du sida.
Mais quand vous dites on a ajouté, qui a ajouté?
Moi je ne sais pas.
Mais c'est pas naturel, c'est ce que vous voulez dire?
Non, ce n'est pas naturel, c'était un travail de professionnel, un travail de biologiste moléculaire. C'est un travail très minutieux, on peut dire d'horloger, on peut dire au niveau des séquences.
Mais dans quel but?
Dans quel but, ça, ce n'est pas clair. Moi, je l'expose, si vous voulez. Mon travail, c'est d'exposer les faits, c'est tout. Je n'accuse personne.
Wikipedia search will show that Robert Charles Gallo is an American biomedical researcher and is best known for his role in the discovery of the human immunodeficiency virus and in the development of the HIV blood test, and he has been a major contributor to subsequent HIV research. However, once secreted government documents revealed by Dr. Leonard Horowitz in his book, Emerging Viruses, AIDS and Ebola, Nature, Accident, or Intentional, show that Dr. Gallo has a direct communication to the creation of what we call the HIV virus. Now remember these names, people. Roy Ash, Henry Kissinger, and Vice President Nelson Rockefeller were all financial investors in a company called Lytton Bionetics under the new National Cancer Institute Bionetics Administration at the Army's Fort Detrick facility. This is where AIDS was created. These people started a program called the Special Virus Cancer Program that began in 1962, which engaged in cancer virus studies using Lytton Bionetics supplied monkeys and chimpanzees. By 1966, Lytton Bionetics researchers advanced recombinant retroviruses causing the never-before-seen leukemia, lymphoma, sarcoma, immune suppressive cancers, and by 1968, studies describing these developments were published. In 1968, Dr. Gallo was the National Cancer Institute's project officer at Lytton Bionetics, where new cancer viruses that were descriptively and functionally identical to HIV/AIDS were being created and tested. A year later, in 1969, Henry Kissinger, while serving as the White House National Security Advisor, selected the option for the use of these bioweapons for the military, and by 1970, the United States Defense Department ordered these viruses for use. Now we come to the German Merck family, which began selling drugs in 1668. Lytton Bionetics supplied the Merck Pharmaceutical Company with the bioweapon that we now call HIV and AIDS to the world. And this was even admitted by the company's then vaccine chief, Maurice Hilleman. And one of the first places they experimented these bioweapons on was mentally handicapped children at Willowbrook State School through a contaminated hepatitis B vaccination trial between 1970 and 1974. By 1976, after incubating the new Bionetics-engineered and Merck-supplied viruses for 2 to 5 years, the children at Willowbrook were rumored to be ill with a strange new disease. This was just the beginning of what we now call HIV and AIDS. This is the true story as to how HIV/AIDS was created. During the late 1960s and early 1970s, originally stemming from Lytton Bionetics and distributed by Merck through contaminated vaccination trials. Now this is how AIDS was distributed into the American populace. This new bioweapon was then introduced to the American public through a hepatitis B vaccination trial conducted at the New York Blood Bank in 1978. The experiment at the New York Blood Bank was run by a man named Wolf Zamunez, who joined the New York Blood Center in 1969 and headed its laboratory of epidemiology since 1973. This hepatitis B vaccination trial was specifically for gay men who were injected with the vaccine at the New York Blood Center in Manhattan during the period of November 1978 to October 1979. As quoted in the New York Times, Zamunez was in charge of the hepatitis B vaccine field trials that began in 1978 and that were conducted among 1,083 male homosexuals. Researchers in these labs, led by Wolf Zamunez, used the contaminated hepatitis B vaccines delivered from Merck, which infected these gay men in New York. Similar